We begin as our hero Miyabi arrives at the impressive entrance of what is clearly a large and significant city. He's visibly struck by the sheer scale of the massive stone gate and the formidable presence of numerous guards. His internal assessment is clear. This is a major, well-protected urban center, and he seems a bit awed by the sight. The scene shifts dramatically and unexpectedly. Miyabi and his companions find themselves suddenly surrounded by a squad of city guards, their polearms creating an intimidating circle. Miyabi is visibly startled, throwing his hands up in a gesture of surprise and asserting their innocence of any wrongdoing. Beside him, his red-haired companion Liz maintains a remarkable calm, almost as if this kind of official scrutiny is a routine occurrence for them, subtly reassuring Miyabi. Clarity on the guards' actions arrives as a stern-looking squad captain steps forward. He announces his authority within the city, which we learn is named Angelum, and inquires about the leader of Miyabi's group. It becomes apparent that the guards were initially present to apprehend some bandits, an operation Miyabi's party inadvertently stumbled into. Miyabi, perhaps a little overwhelmed or simply deferring to expertise, gestures towards Liz. Stepping forward with an air of quiet confidence, Liz identifies herself as the leader. The captain then specifically addresses her as C-rank adventurer Liz, confirming her status and the size of their party, before requesting to see her adventurer card. Meanwhile, one of the guards dismisses Miyabi as a mere civilian, not part of the adventurer group in an official capacity. Liz takes center stage, presenting her adventurer card and explaining the group's leadership dynamic. She clarifies that in adventurer parties like theirs, an unspoken rule dictates that the individual with the highest rank naturally assumes the role of leader, and in their current group, that's her. Miyabi looks genuinely surprised by this revelation, his internal monologue clearly showing he hadn't expected a young woman to be leading seasoned adventurers. His respect for Liz's capabilities grows as other party members chime in, praising her attentiveness, scouting prowess, and overall dependability, underscoring why she's earned their trust and the leadership position. Liz reacts with a slight, endearing blush to the compliments from her party, a hint of modesty despite her capable demeanor. The tension of the encounter fully dissipates as the squad captain informs them that any reward due to the adventurers for the incidental capture of the bandits will be processed through the official channels of the Adventurers Guild at a later time. With their business concluded, the city guards escort the apprehended bandits away, and Liz acknowledges the captain's instructions with a simple "understood." With the misunderstanding with the city guard resolved, Miyabi and Liz, along with their party, are shown interacting warmly with some civilians. These appear to be merchants or travelers who were either being escorted by the group or who directly benefited from the capture of the bandits. They express their sincere gratitude for the group's help and safe passage. As these civilians prepare to depart and a sense of normalcy returns, Miyabi turns to Liz, indicating he has a question for her, a curious expression on his face. Liz, in turn, prompts him to ask what's on his mind. The nature of Miyabi's question is hilariously revealed. It turns out he's in a rather awkward predicament. He has no identification to present for entry into Angelum. Liz reacts with understandable surprise, initially suspecting he might have lost it, especially considering adventurers often have inventory storage. But Miyabi sheepishly admits he never possessed an ID to begin with. To compound the issue, he declares with a somewhat mischievous grin that he's also completely out of money, cheerfully terming his situation a double miracle of being both ID-less and penniless. Liz is, naturally, taken aback by this double dose of unpreparedness, especially after the earlier formalities regarding her adventurer status. This certainly explains his deference to her at the gate. Faced with this barrier to entry, Miyabi initially seems poised to launch into a grand, perhaps overly dramatic, appeal to the guard captain, intending to leverage their recent assistance in defeating the bandits. However, Liz, with an air of weary resignation that suggests she's dealt with Miyabi's theatrical tendencies before, quickly intervenes. Showing her pragmatic nature, she produces a 3-day temporary pass for him, albeit with a sigh, implying this wasn't her preferred solution, but a necessary one. It seems she had a backup plan for just such a contingency. In the background, the routine of city entry continues, with another guard advising a different individual on the proper procedure for obtaining a long-term ID card through the Adventurers Guild. Thanks to Liz's intervention with the temporary pass, Miyabi successfully gains entry into the impressive city of Angelum. As they walk through the city streets, he expresses his sincere gratitude to Liz, not only for sorting out the entry pass but also, as he mentions, for lending him some money. Liz, ever practical and perhaps a little businesslike, accepts his thanks, but is quick to remind him that the money was a loan, and she fully expects him to repay it. Their next stop is the local branch of the Adventurers Guild within Angelum. Here, Liz lays out two specific conditions for her continued assistance to Miyabi. He listens intently as she explains her terms. The first condition is that Miyabi must officially register as an adventurer at the guild. She further clarifies that they will operate as a party of two, which will allow them to formally declare their association and perhaps simplify logistics for them. Liz candidly admits that the underlying purpose of these conditions, particularly his registration and their formal party status, is to prevent him from simply disappearing or running away, given his demonstrated lack of funds and official identification. Supporting the idea of registration, a guild employee at a nearby counter overhears and chimes in, noting that for someone interested in crafting, which is Miyabi's core skill set, registering as an adventurer offers tangible benefits, such as easier access to materials. As they walk through the bustling streets, Liz takes note of a blacksmith shop. Miyabi seems to make a mental note to return, mentioning he'll assist Liz with carrying her items for future requests. He then spots an inn, pointed out by an acquaintance, momentarily distracted from his surroundings by the array of stores. Liz appears to be pragmatically assessing Miyabi's potential as a support member. Inside a modest inn, the first priority is securing a place to rest. Miyabi considers the price of 5 silver coins per night. He mentally calculates the unfamiliar currency, relating it back to the cost of a business hotel in his world, roughly 5,000 yen, deeming the price reasonable. Liz observes his calculations. Having settled into their room, Miyabi lies on the bed, a wave of contemplation washing over him. He reflects on the significant sum of money he borrowed and the various expenses incurred since arriving in this new world: city entrance fees, living costs. A sense of obligation to repay the kindness and support he's been shown weighs on his mind. Next, they make their way to the much-anticipated Adventurers Guild. Upon entering, Miyabi is completely captivated. His eyes widen with excitement as he takes in the grand hall, the diverse adventurers, and even a wolf-like individual, clearly impressed by the reality of a fantasy guild. Liz remarks on the familiar layout of adventurer guilds, common across cities, and inquires if this is Miyabi's first time in such an establishment. Still beaming, Miyabi admits that while he's familiar with guilds from games, his rural upbringing meant he never had the chance to visit a town, making this experience particularly impressive. Liz gently reminds him to stay focused. Just then, Eleanor, a guild staff member, returns from an escort request. Eleanor offers a warm welcome back to Liz, expressing concern for her well-being. Miyabi is momentarily struck by Eleanor's beauty. Eleanor then notices Miyabi and inquires if he is an acquaintance of Liz. Stepping forward, Miyabi introduces himself, stating his intention to register as an adventurer under Liz's recommendation. Eleanor formally introduces herself as a staff member. Miyabi responds with an exceedingly polite and deep bow, a gesture that seems to amuse Liz, who subtly teases him about his earnestness. Eleanor then requests Liz's adventurer card to check the status of her recent request. While Eleanor attends to Liz, she provides Miyabi with an adventurer application form. As he looks it over, he's surprised to find he can read the unfamiliar script, attributing it to the effects of his transfer to this world. His attention is then drawn to a chart detailing the 7 adventurer ranks from F to S, which fluctuate based on request evaluations and guild contributions. Miyabi begins to meticulously read all the details on the adventurer card, including its function as identification and a means to deposit and withdraw money, akin to a bank. He notes the listed terms and conditions: no fighting, the importance of greeting others, maintaining civility, and valuing cooperation. Liz watches him, a look of slight surprise on her face, as it seems most adventurers might not pay such close attention to these rudimentary rules. Miyabi, however, seems to believe in the importance of understanding all the details. Miyabi is at the Adventurers Guild with Liz, about to finalize his registration, but true to his past life as a corporate slave, he is not signing anything without reading the fine print. Miyabi meticulously pores over the adventurer contract, his mind flashing back to the pitfalls of unread agreements from his previous life. Liz watches, somewhat amused, and casually mentions that about 90% of adventurers probably don't even bother reading the terms. This, of course, leaves Miyabi utterly shocked. Eleanor, the guild receptionist, smiles warmly. She remarks that anyone who is an acquaintance of Liz and takes the time to read the contract thoroughly must be a serious and trustworthy person. Miyabi, piecing things together, realizes that the rather basic terms and conditions are likely in place precisely because most adventurers don't read them. He begins to sign, with Liz looking on. As Miyabi writes his name, Miyabi, in Japanese characters, a brief moment of panic hits him. Is that okay in this world? Liz quickly advises him to list his occupation as supporter. She explains that for longer or more demanding quests, adventuring parties often hire supporters to manage logistics, like carrying equipment and taking care of weapons and armor, which makes it easier for the main party to focus. Liz confirms this, adding that while it's less dangerous, it's crucial. As quests drag on and fatigue sets in, adventurers can become irritable, and supporters help ensure the mission stays on track and prevent troubles. Their role, she stresses, is very important. Understanding the role, Miyabi agrees to sign up as a supporter. Liz, visibly tired from her own recent escort request, mentions she's feeling sleepy. Miyabi apologizes for keeping her, but Liz just smiles and encourages supporter-san to do his best. With the paperwork complete, Eleanor presents Miyabi with his official adventurer card. After a brief moment wondering about a temporary pass, Miyabi casually demonstrates his unique inventory skill by making the card appear in his hand, much to Eleanor's surprise. Miyabi then voices a concern. Is it unusual for someone like him, a producer with crafting skills, to register as an adventurer? Eleanor clarifies that while most would register with the Commercial Guild for sales or the Production Guild for crafting and maintenance, it's not unheard of. She explains the different guilds: the Adventurers Guild for combat and escorts, the Commercial Guild for merchants, and the Production Guild for blacksmiths and crafters. Miyabi is surprised to learn about the dedicated Production Guild. Eleanor adds that while producers can be adventurers, they sometimes lack stamina and can be looked down upon, but Miyabi seems determined to make it work. Eleanor offers encouragement, mentioning that the guild has been trying to foster more cooperation with production guilds. She highlights a significant advantage for Miyabi. If he can bring back demon materials in good condition using his inventory skill, which prevents degradation, their purchase price at the guild increases substantially. Miyabi immediately sees the potential, a way to earn money efficiently, repay his debt to Liz, and gather a variety of materials without them spoiling. Miyabi realizes that gathering materials is fundamental to his crafting, and joining requests allows him to do that while also fulfilling his supporter role, killing two birds with one stone. He muses that spending time in the Adventurers Guild might be more beneficial than the Production Guild, where potential conflicts of interest could arise. With his new path clearer, Miyabi asks Eleanor if there are any relatively safe places outside the city where he can start collecting materials.